Today, I'm with the first pick. It's Young Fellow Wednesday. And like we always do, we're talking NFL draft. Starting with the quarterbacks, it's time to have that conversation, Ran. The Carson Beck conversation after a tough loss to Louisville, in which he threw not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 interceptions. We'll also talk USC's Jayden Maiava versus Notre Dame and the weather. And a little revisit of some quarterbacks we talked about earlier. Sawyer Robertson and Josh Hoover faced off in that Baylor TCU game, which also had some weather. And I'd imagine all these guys at some point or another are going to be NFL quarterbacks. Then we'll turn our attention to some non-quarterback college prospects who caught our eye last week with some big games. And we'll check in on some NFL rookies, see how they're doing now that we're 7 weeks through the NFL season. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's former Titans GM Ran Carthon. This is episode 308. And Ran, there it is, 183 days. Time's ticking to the 2026 NFL Draft. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, man, I am fantastic. Back at the crib, which is always good. Enjoy my time in studio, but I also enjoy my time at the crib. So glad to be home. I think
it's worth pointing out that
don't do it. Leave it alone. Keep it moving.
Oh, I'm not going to talk about anything. I'm not going to talk about anything with you being incredibly wealthy and me being poor. I was going to talk about you taking ownership because you texted me this weekend. You said the under-8 flag football team didn't play particularly well. And I said, you sound like Tua blaming the kids. And you actually said you blame the coaching. And by that, I mean, you blame yourself. So what do you need to do better, Rand, to help these kids get to where they need to get to?
So, yeah, for those, we played in the regional tournament, got smoked. We lost all 3 games. Games we shouldn't have lost, honestly.
I was going to say, because you got some athletes on your team. So
yeah, we shouldn't have lost.
Where you're not winning.
I blame myself because obviously with work and life, I don't really get to go to practice on Fridays, but because I'm in studio now on Sundays, I'm not at most of the tournaments. But this tournament was on a Saturday, so I was able to make it. And man, defense just didn't play good. The other team schemed us up well to get our athletes out of position. So it was. I'll say this: it was fun for them while it lasted. We went 0-3 on Saturday, ironically, when I coached, and then came back. The kids played in another tournament on Sunday, and we won the 8U game 35-0, and then we played a 10U team and beat the 10U team.
Okay.
So
sometimes you need a little controversy in your life to bounce back.
You know what, though? In like all honesty, like all jokes aside, like that was, I'll say for talking to my kids in particular, my 2 sons, I told them that was the first time they had lost a game in a year and a half. They don't know what adversity feels like.
Right.
And my 7-year-old was like, "Hey, Dad, like we could learn from this." And so they were able to apply it, and they went out and played hard, man, on Sunday. And won.
That's all you want.
That's all you want. So I'm looking forward to, having practice with them on Friday and getting back to it. But I'm not worried about it, man. Hey, a broken clock is right twice a day. So they were due to lose a game. We did. It's over. We won 2 in a row. So now we're back.
And that 0-3 was well worth the lessons learned by. It's funny, man. Like some of the things you hear young kids say, like 8-year-olds, is stuff that 35-year-old Ryan Wilson wasn't even crossing his mind. So I like it. Don't make excuses. That's the lesson. My dad used to tell me nonstop, former military man. And, I was smarter than him, so it worked out fine. Or so I thought. Right, exactly. All right, let's get into this thing here, Ran. By the way, remember, if you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify with a player, FBS or FCS, and draft eligible, we'll talk about them on the show. Love doing that because that's what we do here on Wednesdays, especially, which reminds me, Young Fellow Wednesdays. Let's get to it. First up, TCU quarterback Josh Hoover. And there were some conditions in that game. TCU, Baylor. TCU ended up winning 42-36, Josh finished 22 of 32 for 231 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And he had 5 drops, too, so he could have been a little bit better. One of the young men we'll talk about had a couple drops. I think Hoover has one of the livelier arms in this class. The weather, he seemed unaffected by it, the wet conditions. He drives the ball down the field. I think he shows the ability to layer the ball to the second level, and he does not get rattled. And we talk a lot about quarterbacks and the way they see him in the pocket, whether there's real pressure or perceived pressure. But he just goes out there and he's very professional about the way he approaches playing that position. The ball comes out on time. He usually knows where to go with the football. He's pretty accurate with it. This was one of his best games, I thought, and he's played pretty well this year. They whipped up on UNC in week 1, and who knows what we can make of that. But I like the idea of him playing against a pretty good Baylor team in some conditions and dealing from start to finish. We've talked about Josh before. What are your thoughts on Josh Hoover?
No, man. The first thing I was going to say, and you hit, well, the first two things, you hit both of them. You talk about the conditions. I felt like Sawyer Robertson played in the conditions and Josh Hoover didn't play in the conditions.
Good way to put it.
It was how I felt. And then the drops for Josh Hoover, his percentage would have been considerably higher had those drops not happened. But he just has some it to him. Playing the quarterback position, you could just feel it. And I don't think, and it's just my opinion, just based off of the little bit I've seen, I still got to do my deep dive study on him. I don't see him as a starting quarterback in the NFL, but I see him as a high-level backup that you trust if he had to go in the game, right? He's a guy that if if he's in the game, you still have a chance to win. Is
Right.
kind of how I felt about him. But I think he throws a catchable ball. I think the ball gets out of his hand quick. I think he knows where he wants to go with the ball. And it was just, to me, in watching both of those, the game back to back, in terms of watching Sawyer Robertson and then Josh Hoover, it was one guy came out and he was just decisive. And the other guy just saw ghosts and was rattled like pretty quick, which is something I don't think we had seen out of Sawyer Robinson to this point. But to me, it was glaring. And Sawyer Robinson, he how many picks did he have in that game?
He had
3. So he's thrown 4 of his 7 picks have come in the last 2 games. Right. And I didn't think he handled the pressure well at all. I think there were times where he had a clean pocket, but he'll get to if one wasn't open, and he would, like, you could literally see him flinch in the pocket, peek and see where the rush was, and then he has to get his eyes back up, and then now he's off kilter. So I thought he was late with the ball. I thought he was behind with the ball. And like I said in the beginning, I felt like he played with the conditions and Josh Hoover didn't.
And that's a good way to put it, because a lot of times you hear coaches in the postgame press conference say everyone was playing on the same field with the same conditions, so we can't make excuses for the mistakes we made. I don't know if Mike McDaniel said that last week and not lost to Cleveland, but he could have, because they certainly got outplayed with the way Tua played. The thing with Sawyer, who I actually like, I don't have him graded as high as Josh. And Josh is unofficially 6'2", 200 pounds. And I think Sawyer's right around that range too. I'll have to double check. But the arm strength is going to be an issue, whether you want to talk about it or not, with Sawyer. There are guys in the league that can play with less than great arms. Brock Purdy and Mac Jones are examples. But also, we talked about this to death. Mac Jones struggled when he wasn't in the system that highlighted what he did well. So Josh McDaniels in year 1, and then, Matt Patricia and whatever else you want to throw after that. And then he gets to San Fran, and they have it figured out. So I do think that's a real thing. And I'll ask you, as someone who's sat in these rooms for nearly 20 years, when you're ranking all the things that a quarterback does well, and you guys like Mac Jones coming out, how can I put this? What's more important, to be a pretty good athlete? Like, Brock Purdy's a pretty good athlete, and that's what I'm thinking about, not Lamar Jackson. But Brock Purdy, a better athlete, or to have a big arm or an average arm? Like, what can you live with more in terms of the quarterback?
I'm trying to process the question properly.
Yeah, let me ask it again, because I asked it in a terrible way. So you can have Mac Jones, or you can have who's a good athlete, that's a Brock Purdy type athlete, but not that, but has a big arm. Oh, here we go. So like a Mac Jones, or someone on the athletic level that's maybe a little more consistent, as a Joe Milton, because Joe Milton's going to throw the ball 1,000 miles an hour. He's a pretty good athlete. Yeah. He's not a great athlete.
No, I honestly will say, in that scenario, give me Mac Jones over Joe Milton, because to me, being able to throw the ball a mile does you no good if you can't get it there accurately and on time. I for one, and this is personal preference when it comes to quarterbacks. I like anticipatory passers. I like accurate passers. And typically, the guys who are anticipatory are the guys who don't have the strongest arm because they got to get the ball out quick to ensure that it's going to get there on time. The guys who have stronger arms, they could be late because they can zip it in there. They have the velocity to get the ball in those windows late if they're behind. So, um, again, for me, I don't like I wasn't specifically coming off a summer tape. I wasn't as high on Sawyer Robertson as
Yeah.
everyone else. I saw him as a day 3 pick. I just think there are going to be some physical limitations that are going to limit him in what he's going to be able to do in the NFL. You talked about the lack of size, and again, one of the things that made me really start to like Fernando Mendoza early when watching his Cal tape was the toughness of standing in the pocket, knowing that pressure was coming and still getting the ball out accurately and on time. And when I'm watching Sawyer Robinson, and this, like I said, this was the first real game where you saw him under constant duress. To me, man, it's a red flag to see him flinch the way he did, especially when you have a clean pocket. I could see if a guy has an edge and he's almost getting there, and you start to peek to see, where you got to slide, where you got to move in the pocket. But when the pocket's clean and one isn't open and you flinch, like that's something that's there because and we're not talking about this quarterback, and I'm not going to mention his name, but there's another quarterback in this draft class, and you know who I'm talking about, that I felt the same way about, that everyone had up on a pedestal. And again, that toughness part and is really big when it comes to that quarterback position, because there are going to be times where you're staring down the barrel of the gun and you got to be able to just stand there and deliver that ball knowing that you're about to get smacked. And
Yeah.
if you don't have that, your teammates are going to see that, and then that's when things are going to start to change.
So Sawyer's verified 6'3", 218 coming into the season. His dad, incidentally, was a first-round pick of the Expos back in 1990, and his cousin's Jared Stidham. Just a little background on him.
Now, I will say this, and that was a note that I put on here for Josh Hoover. Like, he looks small.
Yeah, so he may not be 6'2" because that's unofficial.
Yeah, I don't know that he'll be 6'2".
Yeah.
I don't know that he'll be 6'2". And then you said 200 pounds. Now, he looked a little bigger than 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Even in the graphic, the picture that we showed when we popped up, like you could look at his upper body and his arms. Like Josh Hoover looked bigger than 200 pounds, but he doesn't, like, just from a size standpoint, he didn't look like a big human.
Yeah, look, you can play NFL football and be 6'1". There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But it helps to, the taller you are. Josh is a pretty good athlete too. Again, he's not going to run for 50 yards or 60 yards every single week, but he can move in the pocket. And, I keep coming back to my guy McCorkle, but he's not Mac Jones back there. He was not a terrible athlete. He just got caught with his shirt off that one time in college, and he looked like me going to the beach with all the other elderly people I hang out with.
If that's how you look with your shirt off going to the beach, my friend, leave it on.
That's what someone should have told him.
Listen, I'm going to get you the 2X gas station T-shirt for when you go to the beach.
Oh, I thought you said you were going to get me PX90 and said you could buy me extra large clothes. Yeah, but I think we agree, because you had a moment a few weeks ago where you're like, Sawyer, I see what you're doing. But it feels like you're back to baseline Ran.
No, I mean, listen, I give credit where credit's due when somebody's playing well.
Yeah.
It don't necessarily change my evaluation of you. I give you credit. And that's why I say, and we've talked about different evaluation processes. And that's why if you look at my notes, I grade every game that you play and that I watch you in. And so I use that kind of more so as checks and balances, right? Because sometimes you could be really high on the physical traits of a guy's game, and then you look at every game you gave him was an above average or an average. And so to me, that says that, like, although you have these physical tools, like, you're not playing well, you're not producing.
Right.
Or sometimes you have a guy that does not have these elite traits, these elite physical tools, and all they're doing is producing. So it's the checks and balances. And so again, I say that for Sawyer Robinson, like, hey man, like, you're playing well, you're putting up numbers, and you got to recognize that and tip your hat to him.
Yeah.
But it's going against defenses like TCU is what he's going to face in the NFL. And that to me, but this is another reason why, and I don't mean to jump around, but this is another reason why, and we talk about it here on this podcast, is why you got to let the process run its course.
You're right.
This is exactly why. This is another example of that.
And I'm glad that we have you to offer that balance, because I was talking to my buddy Coop, who works with us at CBS, and prior to that, he made stops everywhere. He's been in Oregon, he's been in Michigan, he's been in Alabama, and one of the things that he's figuring out as he makes his way through the media is that you got to have a opinion on everything right away. It's okay to sort of wait, because again, it's October 22nd. It ain't even Halloween yet, so nothing definitive, but we can certainly talk about these guys. Are you guys talking about, as a GM, are you having conversations about any college prospects by October, or are you still concerning yourself with other business?
No, I mean, you build out time in your day to watch college film, or if you are a person like me who I love college football. And so on those moments, particularly, when you're at the hotel, once you get to the hotel for an away game, or if you're home before a home game and you're sitting around, you're watching college football, and you start watching, you kind of make the mental note. If you see a guy that's balling, you may text the area, hey, who is this guy?
Mm.
And then you'll come in, like if you're me, like I had to set up in my room, in my house, in my own little room. I may, on Monday or Tuesday, whenever, I may get up in early and watch the guy just for my own knowledge, write my note, write my report. And then you're keeping track of guys. I know for me personally, what I like to do, I didn't like to tip my area scouts as to who I like in their area. Right. And then you would check in every so often. Hey, man, give me your top 5 in your area. Don't necessarily have to be the top 5 rated guys, but the top 5 guys you like the most in your area. And then I would take that list and I would watch all those guys, because I don't want to sway them one way or the other as to, oh, you really high on this guy, I don't really like him. And then when we get to December or January meetings, then they're like all of a sudden like, yeah, I don't really like him,
Yeah.
So but yeah, for me, I was already watching guys. You already know how my process works, because we talked about it this summer. So I came into the year having seen a ton of guys using that summertime, but you're having conversations. I would have conversations with, my top level lieutenants, like, hey man, I really like this dude. Like, let's start digging in a little deeper. Or do you know someone at this school? Or if I knew someone, I would reach out to my contacts. Hey man, talk to me a little bit more about the person as you start to break down the tape.
Yeah, and that's why I don't like to talk about some of these guys first, because I don't want to sway you. We've talked about that too, so I understand.
You have such a strong influence on me that
I appreciate you saying that, because Rick would just say, "You're an idiot. I'm not listening to you." So I appreciate you at least being politically nice about it. The other thing, one last thing before we move on from these quarterbacks here, and I touched on it and didn't ask it in a very good way, so I'm going to ask another question that popped into my head. When you're evaluating these quarterbacks, whether you're in Atlanta or St. Louis / LA or San Francisco or Tennessee, do you have conversations about, let's say, Josh Hoover, and let's say you have a day 3 grade on Josh Hoover, not day 3, day 2 grade, 3rd round pick on Josh Hoover, whatever. Are there conversations about, look, we can draft him as a developmental backup, or we can take a defensive tackle that we desperately need that's available to us in round 2.5 or whatever? Are you having those conversations? Because one is a long-term
Are we
plan.
having this conversation this early?
No, like during the draft process.
Yeah. So I will say from a draft process standpoint, if you're saying specifically, if you're saying like in the 3rd round, you're looking like, all right, who can contribute and give us a bigger contribution, and where is my starter? If we had a starter in, let's just say we had a veteran starting quarterback, right, that we knew was locked in and he was going to be the veteran, I probably wouldn't spend a 3rd round pick on a Josh Hoover, knowing that probably within the next 3-4 year window, he's not touching the field for us. Especially if we're like, I'll just say if you're early in the process, like we were here in Tennessee, you wouldn't spend it on him. If you were at a point in, say, trying to think. I guess I never was in a place where we had a veteran. Or Atlanta when Matt was rolling. You probably wouldn't. You would consider it, but you're going to go with the best available player, at that round because you want that person to be able to contribute and help you. So I don't know if I answered that totally, but
no, you did because I'm sure these are the sort of push and pull conversations you have about payoff now versus payoff later. And to your larger point, if you're taking a Josh Hoover in round 3, knowing he's not going to play in 3 years, you only got him for one more year on his deal. And then what are you doing? And you've sort of essentially wasted that pick if you don't get anything out of him immediately. All right. It's time to turn to one of my favorite players in this draft class.
Ryan, I appreciate you sending me this image mid-podcast.
Look at this. Look what Stryker did to me. So Stryker, if you're listening, has my head with some hair on it. So I appreciate that part of it, Stryker. On the beach wearing the first pick t-shirt. If you ever see me walking on the beach with the first pick t-shirt, feel free to throw a saying mud ball.
Ryan, that is the black tee though.
It is. You got the black tee right. And it's not a XXX, so I appreciate that. It looks like just a regular large. So I've been doing
he made those sleeves a little bigger, so at least you can get in the water and get wet, and it doesn't have to stick and contour to your body. You still got a little space in there.
Yeah, when that happens, it's hard to get the shirt off. I'm going to be real with you. So, all right, Stryker, thank you. I'm glad you're using your time wisely producing the show. All right, now we can talk about one of my favorite players in this draft class. And we've talked about him before, but I'm excited to hear what you have to say, Ran, because you went back and you said you did a little deeper dive on Jayden Maiava, the USC quarterback, who still has a year of eligibility left. Transfer from Nevada, started last year for USC when they benched Miller Moss, who is now in Louisville, and has been the starter this year. And I think I've watched 4 of his games, gone back and watched 4 of his games, and not to sway your opinion, but I think he's a good football player. I'll follow up after you give your thoughts on your deep dive on Jayden Maiava.
No, man. So like you said, I went back and I watched I'm looking at it now. I watched Illinois, I watched Michigan, and I watched Notre Dame. I thought Illinois and Michigan, I gave both of those game grades. I put a 6. You would just have to know the scale, but that's a good game grade, meaning he had a good game. Thought against Notre Dame, he was above average. Just overall, I mean, I like the size. I think he has good arm strength. I think he throws a heavy but catchable ball. Andrew Luck, if you ever go back and watch him throw the ball just looked heavy coming out of his hand. But
hey, let me ask you this. Sorry to interrupt you. Have you caught a heavy ball? Because Peyton, just using the words you just used, felt like he threw a light ball go to the opposite end of the strike. It felt like his ball was probably easier to catch. Does that sound right?
No, I mean, I never caught a ball from Andrew Luck, so I don't know. What it felt like, but I could use this as an example. I remember asking Reggie Wayne, the great wide receiver and current wide receiver coach, about Andrew Luck, because to that point he had only caught passes from Peyton Manning, and he was like, I wasn't sure about his arm strength just watching it. Just seeing it on TV or whatever the case may be. He was like, but then when I actually caught a pass from him, I was like, oh no, this ball's coming. You know what I mean? So it's more just an appearance. It's not that the ball is heavy. It's just, it looks heavy coming out.
Yeah.
But like I said, I thought it was a catchable ball. I thought he threw with good accuracy, good touch. And man, like, he made some impressive throws in these tight windows, and not necessarily tight windows, but these confined spaces. There was probably at least 4 or 5 examples where he's got to get the ball over 2, in between 1, and it's just right there on the money. And so you saw that a lot. I did think he needed to tighten up his base and his platform. Just in terms of throwing, because I thought that led to some passes selling on him. I thought he moved around well in the pocket and did a nice job of like keeping his eyes downfield on the move. The one area that was really glaring was ball security in the pocket. You see him when he starts moving about, he's got the ball in one hand, or when someone's tackling him, he's got the ball out here and he's going to the ground, and that's going to lead to him putting the ball on the ground at the next level. I didn't see him as a dynamic athlete. I thought he was, a fairly adequate athlete, but I thought he had enough athleticism to take advantage of green grass that was ahead of him if things broke down and he had space to run, I thought. But he's not a guy that you're going to be doing QB design runs for
Right.
in your offense. But I'll say this, and it could be USC, it could be the jersey number, but there were parts of his game that reminded me of Sam Darnold.
In a good way?
In a good way.
Yeah.
In the way that he, he's just calm in the pocket. He's going to stand there. He's going to be firm. He's going to make his read. He's going to get the ball out quick. He's going to get the ball out accurate. I see the guys. I think he can be a solid starting quarterback in the NFL.
All right. That's high praise coming from Deliberate Ran. No, I'll take that because, it felt we talked about Nico Maiava on this pod the fall too, and he's outperforming expectations only because the expectations are in the basement for him in UCLA. They've turned a corner. But when I watched Jayden the first time a month or so ago, I was like, okay, this like the Illinois game, I was really impressed with the way he played on the road in tough conditions in the game they lost. Michigan game equally. He had that stupid interception down in the red zone, I believe, in that Michigan game. Just a miscommunication, it looked like. Had 2 turnovers in the second half of the Notre Dame game. There was weather, but whatever. I mean, it is what it is. The last interception, he was just trying to force the ball. And the ball security thing is a concern, but it feels like there's still room for growth. There's still meat on the bone. And physically, he's impressive in terms of his size. He's unofficially 6'4". We'll see, but he's thick frame, so you don't have to worry about him, being Jayden Daniels out there in terms of his frame. And I felt like he can make every throw, and he was pretty calm in the pocket. You talked previously about sometimes guys eyes down, pitter-patter feet, moving around. He'll take a lick, and to your larger point, he'll deliver the ball downfield, and usually with some pace and some accuracy. So he's an arrow pointing up guy for me. And, we did the mock draft last week on the show. I had him going in the first round. Like, if he went to the Steelers, I'd be fine with that. But he's probably like all these young guys. You don't want to throw him out there right away, but we got to talk about him. So I'm happy to hear your evaluation of him is not truly and utterly thumbs down.
Yeah, and I'll say this in the way I'm writing these reports, right? So I'm gonna give you a color breakdown. So the elite guy, the creme de la creme of any player position, whatever, that's a blue level player, right? And then from the blue you go to red, and red is that good starter, plug and play. I say it like this: think of a Jake Matthews. A guy that you put in, there's going to be some inconsistencies at time, but you plug and play, they start for you 10 years. You don't look at it. You don't think
worry
about it.
Right.
And then you got gold. Gold is that solid starter. You're going to win with this person, not necessarily because of this person, but you're also not looking to replace a gold level starter.
Here, let me think. The first name that came to mind, and I don't know if I'm underselling him, but you tell me Frankie Louvu feels like he'd be a gold.
Yeah, Frankie Louvu would be a gold.
Okay.
And so, and then you got purple is a backup, and then orange is like a developmental type player. And so, for context, and why I said use the word a solid starting NFL quarterback is because I view Jayden Maiava as a gold starting quarterback, which we could. I literally was just talking to a scout before we came on the call, and we were talking about something that's just a personal philosophy and theory of mine at the quarterback position. You can win games and go to a Super Bowl with a gold level starting quarterback, right? You don't of course you want blue, you want red, but if you don't have that, then if you have a gold level quarterback, then you can build those pieces around. And sometimes those goals will have people thinking, hey, is this guy red? And because I come from the school of thought, if you're arguing between blue and red, they're red. Because blue is blue. That jumps off the tape. You know immediately, okay, this dude is different.
Hey, was Trevor Lawrence a blue coming out?
I didn't think so.
Because I know he did have some warts. He didn't play as well his last season as the season before at Clemson. There's some COVID stuff going on, whatever. I'm trying to think who's a blue coming out outside of Andrew Luck. Joe Burrow?
Burrow would have been a blue.
Okay. There you go.
Burrow would have been a blue. I'm trying to think from Trevor Lawrence's draft. I think Trevor Lawrence was a red.
Zach
And then
Wilson.
Zach Wilson. It depends on who you talk to. Some people
Yeah.
had him at gold. I had him at a gold level.
Okay. That
At
was right.
a gold level.
Trey Lance. Now, obviously, he went 3rd overall with you're projecting.
Trey Lance, and I'm not going to give away trade secrets. I'll say for me personally, Trey Lance was a purple.
Okay.
Purple
he
for
didn't
me.
play last year.
And you and I, because he only had a year in one game as a starter. And you and I, we talked about where I had Trey Lance ranked that year with those quarterbacks that came out. Mac Jones was a high gold.
Okay.
Was a high gold. The thing with Mac coming out, obviously, as you know, he has so much talent around him, which is a case in point of what I was just talking about.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
At Alabama, that people were like, is it him or is it the guys around him? And my counter argument to that was like, well, he didn't screw it up.
That's right.
Right. He won with those guys. And I'm just speaking my truth here because I'm going to bring up a name and it's no disrespect to this guy, but he had similar level talent around him and they didn't win with it. And that's Zach Mettenberger, where he came out of LSU.
Yeah.
And you were throwing to Odell Beckham and you had Jarvis Landry and you had Jeremy Hill in the backfield, and they didn't make it to the SEC championship. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's kind of like the breakdown.
Oh, one more. What about Justin Fields? He went right before Mackett. I think he went 10th.
Justin Fields, for me coming out, and it is what it is. Like I had him as a low red.
Yeah. It makes sense. And we've talked about this to death at this point. It feels like he has regressed from where he was at Ohio State.
And honestly, if you go back and look at it, and I think it was you I was talking to about it, maybe not. But if you watch it, because I can't remember if he came out as a junior or whatever it was, but the year before, I saw a guy in Justin Fields that you saw him looking down the middle of the field. He would come off of, 1, 2, 3. And he would use his legs. And then that junior year, coming into the year, it was just half field locked. And it was just staring down 1 to 2. And he was just locked in. Because I remember doing my research, like, hey, has the Ohio State offense changed from last year to this year? Because it looks different. He looks different. And I think, like you said, you've seen him, go backwards kind of every year, starting at that point. You know what I'm saying? So that honestly led to me having a bit of a Ohio State quarterback bias, because it's
in a bad way.
Yeah, in a bad way.
Yeah.
Because it was like they had that run where they had all these like really good players that were productive at Ohio State. And then you get to the NFL level and it kind of fizzles. And then obviously CJ changed that.
Yeah.
With the way he played, and CJ was just different. He was another guy that coming out, he was a red for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just interesting. I mean, there's no certainly crime in having Justin that high, because everyone and their brother was high on Justin for the obvious reasons. Just sometimes, man, the thing doesn't work out. And he is obviously since been benched for Tyrod Taylor for now. And maybe that'll be good for him, because after the way he played the last 2 weeks, and there's plenty of fingers to blame at, he feels like he needs a break. All right, Jayden Maiava. Let's see. Top 50? Would you take him top 50?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think he's a top 50.
All right.
Top 50 player.
I'll take that. All right. Let's have that conversation, producer Stryker. Carson Beck. In Carson Beck's defense, Ran, there are 5 interceptions when you look him up on PFF. He only had 4 because of a penalty. So, a little reprieve.
I actually got the game pulled up right now. If you keep seeing me look over here, I'm on play 40 of the game because I was just buzzing through it again.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say something, and this might, but you just got to follow me. I was going to pose the question to you: is Carson Beck the Carson Wentz of college quarterbacks?
I mean, that's a fair question.
And I asked that because if you watch the beginning of this game, and this is my second time going through it, like you see NFL throws,
Right.
you see a guy that's just like, oh yeah, this guy has everything. But it's those variances in play
Right.
where you knew, and especially the way he started out. Like you're like, okay, this guy he's arrived. Miami, and I've said it here on this show, Miami's done a good job with these quarterbacks, the system, he's playing confident. But it's one of those deals, and we saw this last week with Carson Wentz, where you throw that first interception.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh boy, it's going to be one of these games where it's going to lead to another mistake. And you watch the game with Minnesota last week, and Carson Wentz got hit a few times early, and then it was like everything kind of went downhill. And then the same thing with Carson Beck in this game. And I've seen 3 out of the 4 interceptions on his second time around. And two of them was forced balls downfield in the double coverage.
Yeah, the first one, I think I actually texted you when it happened. He threw a deep ball down the seam against Tampa 2. So the 3 guys standing around one player.
Yeah.
Your odds aren't very good when you do that.
Yeah. So, and that was just my one question. Now, here's where you can answer that question, and only he can answer that this week, is how's he going to bounce back from this game?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. You were talking about the interceptions that Sawyer Robertson's thrown in the last few weeks. The conversation we're having a year ago with Carson Beck, where he had that 2 or 3 game stretch where he threw what felt like 20 interceptions, threw a bushel of interceptions, got better over the second half of the season, got hurt in the playoff game or the SEC championship game, whichever one it was.
Championship.
Yeah, okay. And obviously had the surgery transferred, so on and so forth. Up to this point, he had been good Carson.
Yeah, he had been lights out.
And to your other point, first half of this game, he was dealing. And one of the notes I wrote, when the pocket's clean in this Louisville game that they lost, in case that wasn't clear, when the pocket's clean, Beck managed the offense efficiently, operates the quick and screen game with rhythm and accuracy, and he kept the chains moving. Under pressure, however, its decision-making and mechanics break down. Multiple interceptions came when he failed to set his feet and forced throws into coverage while trying to make plays, which is what you just said.
Here's something, and I want to be correct when I say this, so give me 1 second. And this is talking about Carson Beck. Going back to the year, so what was last year, 2024? Go back to the 2023 season at Georgia, and he played really well. And I think that year, I'm looking at it now. So 2023 was his first full year as a starter. He completed 72% of his passes, but he was only sacked 11 times that whole season. Right. So it goes to kind of what you're talking about in terms of pockets clean. You don't feel that pressure as much. You could play. But then you go the second season, 2024, and his completion percentage dropped 8 points. He was sacked only 7 more times, 18 times, but he was hit a hell of a lot more. Right. But it goes to what you're talking about, being able to play from that standpoint, and when you know that pressure's coming, when you're getting hit, and that's what typically happens. Now, here's the crazy part. So far this year, he's completing 73% of his passes, and he's only been sacked 4 times.
Right. That's right. Thank you, producer Stryker. If you're listening, Stryker has Carson Beck's stats going back to 2020. He didn't play until 2023 once Stetson Bennett left for the Rams, and all the things there that Ran just talked about are staring us in the face. It's funny you say that, because the talking point about this Miami Hurricanes offense was how well protected Carson had been. And my final note is this: Beck projects as a capable starter in a timing-based offense that emphasizes protection and defined reads. So again, I'll ask you this: when you're going through the pre-draft process and you need a quarterback, whether developmentally or one to start in 18 months or whatever, do you have conversations like, look, we can protect this guy? Or do you have conversations like, this guy has to be able to handle duress, because in the NFL, everyone's going to be under pressure?
No, you gotta have both. You gotta have both conversations, right? Because you gotta have both conversations from the standpoint of, hey, we can protect this guy better than he's been protected.
Okay.
Whether that's Carson Beck or anybody else. But then you also got to have the conversation of, Yeah, because it gets sporadic when he's not protected, and this is where ish can go out the window.
Right.
And
Right.
so you got to have, but that's the part that leads you into having a deeper dive as into the why. And that's where you spend time with the player to learn the psyche
Right.
of the player and how much the pressure really affects them. What's the thought process? Because all these guys put in time. They do the work, in terms of understanding how to play the position, what comes with playing the position. But and I was talking to somebody about Joe Burrow and Joe Burrow's mentality, and they sent me the article, and we knew this, and we talked about this in the pre-draft process, and you can Google it to find the story. But Joe Burrow's little league basketball coach was a sociology professor at Ohio University, and they were down like 9 points or something in the game with like 30 seconds left, and Joe Burrow led them to a comeback win. And the professor told Burrow's family, like, hey, like his heart rate doesn't change, like no matter what he's doing. Like he has the psyche of like a first responder, or he has that. And I'm trying to find. Let me find the exact way.
Like a fighter pilot in a war zone.
Yeah, so it was like he has that type of psyche, but it also leads you the other way. Hold on, I'm gonna find it because it's actually scary, right? So they said he had the qualities you find in first responders and serial offenders.
Oh, gotcha. That's the other way.
Right. So that's but and not saying that everybody has to have that level of this, right?
Flat line. Yeah.
But you want to see a guy that is going to be able to have that calm, that presence, that calming presence in the pocket. And just, I mean, think about it. If you sit back and you objectively think about it, and you think about all the great quarterbacks in the league and how they play when they're under duress, like it's something that holds true. So that'll be one, like I said, in the process where we really kind of sit back and say, all right, let's figure this out in terms of why they react the way they react versus pressure.
All right, one last thing before we move on from Carson, because let's talk about Carson after the game. I think producer Stryker has the audio of Carson talking about his last interception, which is a little ball in the flat where I think the running back ran the wrong way. You got that, Stryker?
On that last play, that last interception, were you not expecting that defender to be there? They're running that kind of sim pressure and they're popping out at the snap.
We have a perfect play for it. We had a miscommunication with the route and what we were doing. So, just sort of ran the route wrong, and I went to go throw it because we're hot off of a pressure. And again, he made a good play on it. So, but it definitely didn't help that we ran the wrong play.
All right, so he said we ran the wrong play twice in the press conference. I will give him credit for understanding that he was hot, and those are the things you talked about. Everyone, as a quarterback at playing high level, used to know those things, and he got that part right. And the issue isn't that his teammate ran the wrong route, which I'm guessing he probably did. The issue is, what good does it do saying that out loud other than trying to deflect blame from you, and you are the star of the show as a quarterback, for good or for bad? And I'm not blaming Carson for calling out his teammate. I'm just blaming the manner in which he did it when you're talking about graduating from ACC football to the NFL, where the lights are going to be even brighter.
Well, and I've been on our series of shows on the network talking about guys stepping to the front and holding themselves accountable and being accountable and not throwing your teammates under the bus. In this situation, I'm kind of on it.
Okay.
Because on one level, he's stating a fact that hey, the back ran the wrong route, or whatever the case may be. I didn't necessarily feel like he was trying to absolve himself.
Okay.
From that. Again, can you protect your teammate better and say, hey man, like he could have just left it where it was a miscommunication.
Right.
Right. But then on the other side for me is like, if you knew he ran the wrong route, whether it was hot or not, you don't compound a mistake by still throwing it over there. right? You make the mistake worse by, you know what I mean? So, I mean, at the end of the day, he threw 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
And the other 3 were clearly on him. So I don't necessarily have a problem with it per se. Like if that was my teammate, I wouldn't have, especially me playing running back, I wouldn't have felt like, damn, man, you just threw me under the bus.
Okay. No, that's good to know.
Personally. Now, there's some guys that may have felt some type of way. But I also, me personally, if that were me, I would have been like, hey, man, that was a miscommunication. And I have to do a better job. And I'm just speaking from like a quarterback standpoint. Like I got to do a better job of making sure I know where to go with the football.
And that's it.
And to me, that's only me saying I got to do a better job of making sure I know where to go with the football, meaning I'm not going to throw the football to the dude who ran the wrong route.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that. But the other thing is it's not the end of the world, that one comment from Carson. But when you start to add all the things up and when things go sideways, can he rebound? He seems to struggle with that. And then at the end of the day, when you have that press conference, just adding fuel to the fire, it feels like. All right. So those are the 4 quarterbacks we're talking about this week. I'm going to take a quick break here and talk about some non-quarterbacks who stood out. We'll do that right after this break.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoons. It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, Rand, let's make our way back to Baylor and talk about this tight end, Michael Trigg, who is juiced up, 6'3", in the third, 250 pounds verified. And he is usually one of the best athletes on the field. The issue is, tell me what you think of this. The issue is he has a lot of focus drops. That's a problem. The other issue is it feels like he is hard to throw the ball to at times because you don't know where he's going to be in his route. And that's a concern because athletically, he's, up there. He's, again, like I said, he's going to outrun people. He'll make some insane contested catches. He'll make catches in stride down the seam and then outrun everyone to the end zone. But other times he's like, all right, are you running the route or not? Are you where you're supposed to be or not? And then he has these focus drops. And the other thing I kept coming back to is, despite all the athleticism, he, for me, is not, I will say this, he will try as a blocker, even in line. I give him credit for that. And I mentioned that because he's not a better player than JT Sanders, Jatavian Sanders coming out of Texas was for me personally. JT ended up being a 4th-round pick. He's probably a little better athlete than JT, but I would not feel great taking him day 2 with the concerns that I just mentioned.
If you notice, I'm smiling at everything you're saying.
I don't know if you're laughing at me.
No, first of all, shout out. He's from the crib. He's from Tampa.
Good.
So I want to show him love there. One of the notes I wrote, raw. He's very raw. And I would, obviously, this is where your area scouts would come in to get the background. He looks and feels like a basketball player that's transitioning to playing football. The other note I took, day 2 talent, day 3 pick.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Feel better about that.
And for everything you said, he is raw. He is so inconsistent running his routes, getting in and out of breaks. Like you mentioned, the focus drops. You like the athlete. He looks really athletic at times, and other times he looks clunky and uncoordinated.
Right.
And so there's a guy that he reminds me of, and this is a part of him being raw and me wanting to know more about his background, Juwan Johnson.
Oh, yeah. Out of Penn State, went to Oregon.
It was the Oregon. He played receiver. He's playing tight end now for the Saints. That's who he reminds me. The good of him reminds me of that. But this is a guy that you would want to spend a lot of time with to figure out, because I think watching him, you leave with more questions than answers.
Right.
You leave with a lot of why, like why. But again,
like my dad talking to me when I was in high school. Why you do that?
Why, son? Why? I just don't get it. I'll just end it with this. day 2 talent, day 3 pick.
That's a great way to put it, and saved us a lot of words that I was using. I looked real quick. He played a lot of football coming out of high school. He was the top 25 recruit in the state of Florida, but also played basketball at both high schools he was at, averaged 22.6 points a game as a junior, 20 points as a sophomore. So he's a baller. Like, he is a basketballer through and through. But right. Okay, fair enough. You got that one right. Maybe you've done this before. Good for you. All right. Let's go to the Lord's position, running back. And last week we talked to Mon Claiborne out of Wake Forest, and you didn't love him as much as I thought we were going to love him. This week, Robert Henry Jr. out of UTSA, courtesy of our buddy Lee Douzable, who we work with here and who calls games on Saturdays. He called Robert Henry's game against North Texas. He's fun. Now, he's not used a lot in the pass game. He can catch the football. Went back and watched some of his targets. I don't want to oversell it, but his jump cut is legit. His change direction is legit. He can turn the corner. He'll run between the tackles. He's not that big. Let me double check. I think he's
5'9", 205.
Okay, so that's big enough. And he's not going to be an every down back. We don't have every down backs really so much anymore. But I think he could be a nice change of pace back. He's a little older. I think he'll be 24 in a few months. And if you're doing running back by committee and you have a day 3 pick and you like Robert Henry Jr., I think it certainly makes sense that you would draft him to fit your system.
Yeah, and I have day 3 pick. And you talked about the lateral movement, and that's one I'm looking at my notes. You know, he's shifty with good lateral movement, lateral explosiveness. I thought his vision was good. I thought he had good contact balance, you know, keep his feet through trash. My one thing, and this is weird because I'm going to go back and pull all of them. He's got 5 games this year where he has a 70-plus yard run. But I still came away like, I don't know how fast he is.
He got run down in one of the games that I watched, and
that
I don't know
the North Texas game.
Right, the last game. So let me ask you, because I was thinking about this: is that a function of lack of speed, or are you tired after doing all that stuff?
And I'm glad you said that because he was in on the very next play.
So what does that tell you? He wasn't tired.
It's a lack of speed.
Okay.
Because typically, anybody you get a big 50, 60, 70-yard play, you see him. Hey, give me one. Let me get one.
Give him the AR5.
You know, let me get one. And so that was the one thing I came away with. Like, how fast is he?
Yeah.
And
he's got the juice to turn the corner, though. He can get the edge.
Yeah, but it's one of those deals, and I think I wrote it in here. Yeah, I wrote it in here. He's more quick than he is fast.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that can fool you because you see that initial burst where you're like, ooh, but then it tops out. And I think that's what we saw that North Texas game where the speed just topped out. And Stryker has it pulled up here so you can see against A&M, he had a 75-yard run. Against, what was that, Sam Houston, maybe?
Yeah, it could be. That's a weird
75-yard run. Colorado State, 76. So he's got, like I said, 5 games where he had a 70-plus yard run.
You know what this tells me, though?
What's that?
Just give him the ball either somewhere past your 25-yard line because he's going to get at least 75, and then after that, you're fine. He just tops out at 75, and then the brakes come on.
Yeah, but he's a guy too, and like we talked about with the Claiborne kid last week, like with the new format of the dynamic kickoff, like he might be a pretty decent kick returner because of what we talked about, the lateral quickness and just his ability. You just, in this day and age, yeah, if you got a guy that can take it to the house, by all means, but you really want to flip the field and shorten the field for your offense.
And look, man, that first game of the season, he played very well against Texas A&M. So North Texas isn't at the level of Texas A&M, although North Texas beat up on UTSA pretty good. Let me ask you this, the other thing before we move on, and thanks to our buddy Lige for recommending Robert Henry Jr., because this running back class is wide open. He's not a return, doesn't have return experience right now. When you're talking about drafting these kids and you have an idea that maybe they might be good at that, they don't have the experience, obviously you're going to talk to them at the Senior Bowl or Combine or whatever, but what are the conversations in the draft room, pre-draft process room about how to take someone who's a moldable piece of clay but doesn't have the experience doing something like returning kicks or punts?
Yeah, it's just again, it's one of those situations where if you don't have enough, and this is where your special teams coach is involved. It's like if you don't have enough footage, then maybe you send the special team coaches to the pro day, and you're like, hey, you grab Robert Henry Jr. after, hey man, we want to see you catch some kickoffs,
Yeah.
just to see how you field the ball, how you track the ball, and all of that. And then you can go from there and judge the hands, because again, you have to look at this new dynamic kickoff essentially as the first play of offense.
And it's
right.
Right. It's
And
for real,
that's
too.
how you almost have to view it. And you need to have, if you notice, a lot of teams now are putting their running backs back there to field the ball because of the nature of the line. You got a line of scrimmage, and it's not the receiver or the DB, the guy that can catch it and run the daylight. This is really more like an extension of a gap scheme run or a zone scheme run, with the
Right.
nature of those two, the defensive or the kickoff team being so close to the kickoff return team. You got to have a guy that has vision, understand how to set blocks, and be able to put their foot in the ground and attack the crease.
Right. No, that's right. And that's exactly, I'm just thinking about my Pittsburgh Steelers. They have Kenneth Gainwell back there returning kicks at times. All right, next up, and we're comfortable day 3 for Robert Henry Jr. right now.
Yeah.
And he's older. He's 24, so I'm sure that'll be a conversation, talking point, especially for a running back. He's a transfer from he was in junior college before, and he was a standout junior college player, which is no surprise when you see him play. All right, let's make our way back to the Miami-Louisville game and talk about Chris Bell, a wide receiver. He's been getting a ton of buzz this year because he's been putting up insane numbers. Had a big day evening against the U, in which he went for 136. The week before against UVA, he went for 170. The week before that against Pitt, he went for 135. He has 6 touchdowns. So I was very interested to go back and watch him. His verifieds are 6'014", so he's 6'1.5", 227 pounds. And I'll just give you my one note on him. Big body possession receiver who excels at back shoulder throws. That's his bread and butter with Miller Moss, but lacks explosiveness and yak ability. Like the 2 touchdowns he scored off the top of my head against the U were on drag routes where they just blew the coverage and he just outran everybody on 35, 40 yards, whatever it was. But I do not think he is a top 100 guy based on the ability to get open by himself. And that's just me, and it's early, like you said. I'm not writing this in Sharpie. I'm writing it in pencil. But those were my initial impressions after going back and watching all his targets thus far this year.
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes. Strong build. He's a build-to-speed runner. I disagree with you a little bit in terms of yards after the
Okay, good.
after contact, because I think you get him the ball on the move. I think he is a tough tackle because he's so strong and he's so big, especially when you get his momentum going. I do agree. I think he is a Z wide receiver. I think you put him, allow him to play over the middle. I don't think he has that initial burst to threaten you with the speed as an X or to be a downfield vertical threat. I see the guy. I think his ceiling is a number 4 wide receiver.
Okay. And are you taking a number 4 top 100?
No.
Okay.
No. And I again, he's another guy I see based off of what I've seen so far. And I want to go back and watch, because I only watched the Miami game.
Yeah.
And
that was
I
a
want to
big
go
game
back
for him.
but he just the feel, the look, like he is a number 4 to me is his ceiling. I don't see a guy that's going to really come in and threaten these NFL DBs. Yes, he's going to be more physical and stronger than these guys. But if you have those guys that, because here's the thing, let me rewind a little bit and I'll make this brief. Everyone, when they think of press coverage, they think of press coverage as being physical, getting their hands on you, jamming you. And yeah, there are the guys that can do that. But a lot of times now people press you with their feet, being at the line of scrimmage, right? If that makes sense. If you think about a guy that's rolled up in coverage, tight coverage at the line of scrimmage, and then now he's soft shoeing. Soft shoeing is when you're off the ball, and you can't really see my feet right now, obviously, but you take that one lateral jab, whether it's with your left or your right, and you're forcing a receiver to do all of this at the line of scrimmage, and you're square, you hadn't moved, and you're just boom. And to me, that is a form of press. It doesn't have to always be this. I'm rolled up on you in coverage, and I'm forcing you to do all of this, and I'm just
doing the cabbage patch at the line of
yeah,
scrimmage, trying to get off
you're doing all of this to get off the line, and I'm just the little subtle jab, and I'm moving with you, and so he's going to try to outmuscle these guys, and these DBs at the NFL level are going to beat him with their feet.
Hey, let me ask you to follow up on that, because you're right. When you think about press man, you think about getting your hands on the receiver and disrupting his ability to get into the route. But I would imagine the way you're describing it, would you call it soft shoeing?
Soft shoeing.
It means that now the DB is not going to be in a position to get off balance or miss with his punch and get beat at the top at the start of the route.
You got your hands up. You're in position that if they get into you, you could do that, right?
Right.
But you're square, and you're taking that one jab to like really get your feet going. You take that jab, and while they're doing all of this, you're just reacting with your feet because they're not coming forward.
Right.
They're
still not into the route yet.
They're still not. They're doing this, and you just reacting. And then now that forces them to make a declaration in terms of what they're trying to do or where they're trying to go.
I'm going to bring up soft shoe every week just to see you do the cabbage patch. That needs to be a gift, Striker. Just Rand dancing by himself in his little square over there. All right. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with Chris Bell. And, if he runs a 4.29, we'll have to revisit this. But I think Rand's assessment of where he projects and how he projects at the next level, I agree with. He's not going to be a down the field guy, but he is a guy. I don't want to compare him to Malachi Corley coming out of Western Kentucky, because he played more out of the slot and they just gave him the ball. But Malachi wasn't winning down the field. They just threw him screen passes and quick game.
Yeah, Malachi was much better. I didn't complete my sentence when I said he was much better. I was going to say he was much better with the ball in his hands, and he was more versatile in terms of the variety of ways you could get him the ball.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's right. Yeah, you didn't finish your sentence because you started dancing. All right. There it is. Next up, and I just put this young man on the list because he had a good week last week for Texas. And Rand has a backstory for Trey Moore, edge rusher. He transferred from UTSA, I believe, as well, right?
Yeah, he's a UTSA transfer.
He was a standout at UTSA. Quickly, I'll just tell you, freshman All-American UTSA in 2022. He had a couple sack records.
Yeah,
tackle for loss records as a freshman, and then a sack record, school record as a sophomore, and then he transferred to Texas. But you knew about Trey Moore. How? So,
first of all, shout out to my guy, my brother from another, Anthony Robinson, a.k.a. A-Rob, a.k.a. Ampo. And shout out to NCAA football. The college football, whatever they call it now, to me it'll always be NCAA. But the college football game, when the game was re-released, I guess this was 2024 for the first time in 10 years. If you know me, you know that's my favorite video game. And I went back and I was playing it. I did the Race to the Heisman, Road to Glory, whatever it's called now. And I created a linebacker, signed to Texas. And as I'm playing the game, and Anthony was at my house, and we're in my little room, and we're talking, and I'm playing the game, Trey Moore was just absolutely balling. And he was balling on the video game and set the sack record on the video game. And so I looked at A-Rob, and I was like, hey, man, who is that? I was like, is this like a real dude, or like, do I just have it on too low of a setting that he's balling like this? And A-Rob was like, no, man, that's the UTSA kid. He just transferred in. Like, they're kind of high on him. And so I was like, all right, cool, whatever. Keep playing the video game. And he just keeps balling. I'm like, you know what, man? Like, hey, put him in your notes. We got to watch this dude tomorrow. And I'm like, because what if this guy is a real dude? And this is my first exposure to him on a damn video game. And I was like, how crazy would that be that if we got in a position, we drafted this guy and our first exposure to him was on a damn video game. So when you put him on the list, I just smiled and I was like, it's all coming full circle.
That's funny. Yeah. Obviously I don't play video games. I'm a grown man, but that's not my. But yeah, so 14 sacks in 2023 as a sophomore, set the UTSA record. Transferred to Texas in 2024, had 7 sacks last year, and he had a good week this week. So I was excited to go watch him. I don't think he didn't play quite as well as how you experienced him on the video game. Unfortunately, I described him high motor, hybrid linebacker because they move him around a little bit. Pass rush upside, and he's certainly athletic, but he needs to get stronger. It felt like from what I saw, and didn't run a lot. Doesn't have a lot in terms of his repertoire of pass rush moves. And I don't know if that's just the games I watched or something else. But I kept coming back to this because they would move him around. Any thoughts about maybe having him play sort of a hybrid role, off ball a little bit more instead of just putting him on the edge where he sometimes struggled to get off those blocks against 325-pound tackles?
So I'll say this. Our day 3 pick for me.
Yeah.
Right. He's a day 3 pick for me. I thought he ran well, and a lot of that was his motor, his effort. Like you talked about him being versatile in his alignment. They play him off the ball. They play him on the edge in a stand-up position. They play him with his hand in the dirt. Very active motor. I think his overall power, right? Because he is a shorter statured guy because he has adequate size. His power is above average.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it in his inability to transfer speed to power comes because he's playing on his toes.
Okay.
And there's no power when you're on your toes. Right. So I think that's part of it too. The player he reminded me of was China Nwosu.
Okay.
Out of that played at USC, that was at the Chargers, is now in Seattle. In terms of their body structure, their size, and then how they use. I think China has more power and more violence in his game, but just in terms of the versatility, I think this guy's a Sam linebacker. Is what I think he is. Because he can, like you said, play that hybrid role where he's on the edge. He can set the edge because he plays low. He plays with leverage. But is he going to dominate a 330-pound tackle with power? Absolutely not. Right. He's going to have those rushes where he can, stutter and bend the corner because I think his bend is solid and he'll be able to, but he's just not an overly explosive attack the perimeter guy. I think the best thing he does in terms of being able to generate speed and quickness off the ball is anticipate the snap count. And you see that a lot where you see him and you're like, damn, is he offsides? And so you have to go back and you go back and forth. But I think he has a method. Like if you ever watch TJ Watt when he's playing, and I love when you're watching these TV games and they do a zoom in on the eyes. So folks at CBS, if we have a Steeler game, make sure you get a ton of shots of TJ Watt, because TJ Watt, all he's reading, especially on third down, is the play clock.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
He has a full-on study on when these teams are snapping the ball, and he's looking at that play clock, and that's why he jumps off sides sometimes. Right. Is he's not focused on the snap count because he knows if I'm playing Ryan Wilson, they snap the ball between 5 seconds and 3 seconds. And so a lot of times he's in his stance and he's just looking up at the play clock. Like, okay, 8, 7, and then he starts to get ready, 6, 5, 4, and then now he's starting to anticipate. And so the really smart guys off the edge, they find those little nuances. And I think Trey Moore is one of those guys that try to anticipate the snap count.
I love it. That's a great little nugget.
I'm coming with the gems today.
What'd you say?
I said I'm coming with the gems today.
You are. For Trey Moore, verified 6'1.5", 246 this summer. So to your point, he's stout enough. He's just the Toadsie thing is interesting as well. Nwosu's a high energy player too, and that's sort of that.
And that's why I say like Nwosu is violent. He sets physical edges. And I think that's the difference. Like Trey plays hard. He's tough. He fights. He scraps. I don't know that he has the violence that Chenna plays with.
Yeah, but that was I'm glad we got a chance to talk about him because he has an impressive resume to date. Had a good season last season, and he's flashing a little bit, especially last week against Kentucky. All right, before we take a break here, we would be remiss if we didn't mention Montie Quinn, out of Curry College. Ran for 522 yards on 20 carries And Curry College Division III win over Nichols College, 71-27. He has been making the rounds, and rightfully so, on interviews everywhere. And it's a fun story. Did you say you had some audio, Striker, that we wanted to play?
No, I have the video of him.
Oh yeah,
playing.
let's see the video. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can just talk while it's going.
All right, producer Striker producing it up. Oh yeah, so this is the video from Twitter of him running, and he's undersized. I don't know if he's undersized by Division III standards, but these future engineers and lawyers ain't catching him as he's going down the field.
Hey, listen, when I first saw this, I meant to text you, and that's where we ended up. I was like, yo, we got to shout this guy out and show this guy some love. I mean, I just sat here and did it because his final numbers was what, 522 on 20 carries?
Yeah.
Like, that's 26.1 yards a carry.
No answers. They had no answers for Montie.
Like, that is, I don't care what level you are. Those are ridiculous numbers. So, Montie, shout out to you, young fella. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. We're gonna give Montie the young fella of the week.
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna spoil it. Like, you did your thing and take advantage of this moment. I will be the first to tell you, I don't know that you are an NFL player or not, hadn't studied your game that way. But this is an awesome thing for not only you, but Curry College. You put them on the map. You went viral, which is what everyone loves at this point. And so, or it says, welcome to Curry College, the only college in Massachusetts that has a job guarantee program in Montie Quinn.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, hopefully currycollege.edu when Montie Quinn leaves, and if he's not a professional player, that you guys have the best guaranteed job program for him.
Yeah, guaranteed job program that includes going to the NFL or playing professional football. All right, I'm going to look quickly. I'm going to ask you off the top of your head while I cheat. Who's the best Division III player to play in the NFL?
Pierre Garçon.
Oh, that's a great call. Where did Pierre go? I don't remember.
Mount Union.
Oh, you had that on the tip of your tongue. You must have cheated.
No, just.
Oh, okay. Oh, there's some good ones here. Oh, I missed that on that one too. Fred Jaxson, of course, he went to Co. Remember Fred Jaxson went to Co College.
Buffalo, running back.
Wait, what? Ken Anderson, quarterback? Augustana College? I didn't know that was a Division III program. Ali Marpet, he actually went down the road here to Hamilton College. No, excuse me. He went to Hobart College.
Hobart.
Yeah. Did you make it up there? Did you ever go up there to watch him? Like,
no,
you ever been to like you ever been to like a Division III school to sniff out a prospect?
No.
Okay. And then London Fletcher, John Carroll.
So I would say I would probably go London Fletcher and then Pierre Garçon.
Yeah. No, that's a good call. God, Pierre was a good player. It's crazy though. You can get players, you can find them anywhere. So shout out to Montie Quinn for that. That's a huge. I mean, look, man, he didn't break the Division III record. He broke the football on earth record for rushing yards in one football game. That is awesome. There it is. Young fellow of the week, Montie Quinn. Good luck finding a higher award than that, Montie. All right, let's take a quick break here, and we'll hit on some of these these NFL rookies that balled out right after this.
You can't count on accurate expiration dates.
No, that is a rookie mistake.
Or the kindness of strangers. But thanks to CBS Sports, you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount+. All
right, Rand, let's wrap this thing up here. And let's start. He's from the crib, Oronde Gadsden II. So, but he ended up
crib, South Florida, baby.
Yeah, and then
this was your guy.
My guy. I love me some Oronde Gadsden II.
This was your guy. I got to give you your props.
And 5th round pick. Again, when you talk about Michael Trigg compared to Oronde Gadsden II, they're not the same. Physically, they probably look alike when they get off the bus. In terms of the way they play football, is different right now. And that's just a measuring point when we talk about, well, he should be a top 50 pick or whatever the conversation may be. But I remember talking to Oronde at the Shrine Bowl, and he said growing up in South Florida, his dad obviously played for the Dolphins. His dad actually played for the Dolphins when Rick was there. But his Little League team was coached by his dad, Sam Madison, Jason Taylor, Zach. What's Zach's last name? What was he escaping?
Zach Thomas.
Zach Thomas, thank you. And then on his team was Patrick Surtain the second. Who else was on his team?
Was Mason on his team?
Mason, thank you. Yeah, Mason Taylor was on his team. Dan Marino was a coach too. He stopped by every once in a while. I said, "You guys lose the game?" He said, "No, we didn't lose the game." But they were a bunch of dudes. So anyway, had to go to Syracuse to play. He balled out his last season, especially with how good that team was a year ago. And he had his splash moment last week in the loss. The Chargers lost that game, but it wasn't because of Oronde. He had catches of 22, 30, 53, 24, and then he had a 15-yard touchdown, 9 targets, 7 catches for 164 and a touchdown all told. And they were using him exactly how he was used at Syracuse. You said you had some thoughts from Syracuse coach Fran Brown, striker, on how OG did in his big game?
I watched the highlights of it. I don't get to watch other stuff because I'm watching the next opponent and finishing up with our other game. But I watched the highlights. I was hyped. Like, it was cool to see it. I mean, that's OG. And then I started thinking about, like, dang, he could have stayed in college one more year, right? You know, so I went from being really happy for him to, why'd you leave, chump?
He called him a chump at the end there. I love me some Fran Brown. If you want to get the unvarnished truth, he will give it to you. And I think he's been great for the Syracuse program, and folks around here love him. And I appreciate his honesty. But, yeah, OG was right to leave. You have any thoughts on OG, or do you want to go to your guy?
Nah, man, he balled out. We were watching the game in studio, and you just noticed that he just explosive after explosive. And I'm like, hey, guys, this is – first of all, you can't miss him with those uniforms on.
What'd you think of those? The all mustards.
Terrible.
Oh, you didn't like him?
No.
Okay.
No.
How do they rank with the all lime greens that Seattle wears occasionally?
I would much rather go with, not much rather, but I would probably choose the Chargers uniform over the lime green.
That's funny.
And I'm just basing it on my skin tone and what looks good on my skin tone.
You're worried about your
but nah, man, this guy, you talked about all the explosives that he accounted for, and he's going to be a real threat for them as the season goes on, especially having someone at that tight end position in this offense. And if you look at this offense, at a Greg Roman offense, a Jim Harbaugh offense, the tight end is featured. And you can go all the way back and look at their history. The tight end is what really opens up this offense and makes it go. And I think they got their guy.
And it is funny when you look back and you think, all right, well, what's the difference between him and Elijah Arroyo, who went on day 2, and Mason Taylor, who went on day 2? And I think the differences start to become incremental. They're not huge differences. Like, he's a little undersized, quote unquote, but when I stood next to him, he looked every bit to be 255. He played at 248 or whatever he said he played at. But again, we talk about quarterbacks, Rand, the system matters. So depending on what system you're in, whether you're a quarterback or a tight end, might determine how quickly you're able to be impactful. Speaking of impactful, your guy, 49ers linebacker Tatum Bethune, and they were down big. We saw shots of Fred Warner with his foot in a cast because he just had surgery on the broken ankle up in the stands in that game they won, courtesy of not only Mac Jones, but also guys like Tatum Bethune, former 7th-round pick in 2024 out of UCF and then Florida State. What'd you like about Tatum's performance in that game?
I think first and foremost, because I wasn't sure who was going to be the green dot, and the green dot is the person that has the in-ear, the inner helmet earpiece that the defensive coordinator communicates with, that calls the defense, because no one has done it since 2018 other than Fred Warner. And so, he's, Tatum's not a rookie, but he's a second-year player, and I just think he was a guy that for him to be able to step into that role and play as well as he did, 10 tackles, 10 total tackles in the game, had a TFL, and when I tell you he brought it as a blitzer, he was a load for those guys to block as a blitzer. He really affected Michael Penix later in the game. In terms of being able to rush the passer, make the middle of the pocket muddy, that didn't allow him to step up. And if I'm not mistaken, he might have been, because I think towards the end of the game, Penix kind of got twisted up and turned a little bit, and I want to say it was him. And then he came back and had another rush later that on a big 3rd down, or maybe it was 4th down, that didn't allow Michael Penix to kind of step into the throw, and he really affected the pocket. And so I know a lot of people feel, I mean, obviously, you can't replace a Fred Warner. And a lot of people feel like maybe the Niners should go and trade for somebody. This young man stepped up and is showing them that, like, nah, I can hold it down until my OG Fred gets back.
Couple things. 6'0", 229. So he's not oversized. He ain't Ray Lewis out there. And you can still be impactful in terms of the way you play and creating pressure. Number two, is anybody doing a better job coaching right now than Kyle Shanahan's staff?
Not at all. Not at all. And especially you talk about with them. And I said this on one of our shows on the network. The best part of that game to me was the player introductions, because at every turn it was like, who?
Right.
Who? And all of those dudes stepped up and made plays.
They did
for them, because
right.
if you think about it, I mean, you had Michael was out there, Diamador Lenore, and Jair Brown. Even though Jair Brown's not a household name per se,
right?
But I mean, you were talking about rookies, second-year players, some guys that were activated from the practice squad, and they were all out there making plays. And so, shout out to Kyle. I personally think Kyle should be in the driver's seat right now for Coach of the Year, and it still blows my mind to this day that he has never won Coach of the Year, considering all the success he's had. And shout out to Robert Saleh and the juice that he's brought back to the building after they've had some turnover since D'Amico left to take the head coaching job at the Texans. So at that D coordinator spot. So shout out to Saleh. They better make the most of it. Saleh's going to probably get another job here pretty soon with the way he's got these guys playing. But I just wanted to make sure we highlighted this guy, man. I think he's got 2 straight games because he filled in for Fred after Fred went down. I think he's got 2 straight games of 10 tackles in each game. So shout out to you, young fellow.
Chase Lucas played big in that game. I'm just looking over the roster to remind myself. Our guy Marcus Siegel, who we've talked about on the show, you talked about specifically. Malik Mustafa finally came back from injury, so he had to play. He hadn't played much at all this year, I don't believe. So it is a duct tape situation. Who's that?
Shout out Sam O, the edge rusher, number 91. Had him here in Tennessee.
Oh,
played
yeah.
at the University of Maryland. I'm not trying to pronounce Sam's last name. Good luck to you, Ryan, because I know I see the light bulb and the hamster wheel turning. You're trying to pronounce it. I know him as Sam O.
That's how I know
Sam O, he's playing some really good ball for them as well.
Yeah, Utugros Montos injured, Bryce Huff is injured, so they had to turn to some other guys up front. The only thing I would push back on in terms of that is what Kelvin Shepard's doing with that secondary of Detroit. Those are a bunch of who guys as well, but it is hard to argue with.
Yeah, but we're talking about 4 guys for what, 1 or 2 games, and you still got that front that they have and the linebackers that they have.
Yeah.
Versus, you're a 49er offense. You've been out without your starting quarterback. You went into a game without your 3 starting receivers and your starting tight end. And then on defense, long story short, they've lost all their superstars.
Yeah, Bosa and Fred on defense.
And you're still 3 games above 500.
Yeah. 2 words, Mac Jones. You're welcome. That's not the only reason I should get Mac some love. All right, one last thing before we get out of here. Let's talk Jaxson Dart because, we've talked about this on the Monday pod about how they lost that game and whatever. So I went back and watched all of Jackson's throws. I was just interested to see it again. And I don't want to rain on the parade. Jackson's a shot of excitement for Giants fans, and certainly Brian Daboll is very fond of him, it appears. But if they played a lot of cover 1, the Broncos did, and they had a lot of little runaway routes, quick game, a lot of mesh concepts for Jaxson to get the ball out quickly, which makes sense. If that first read wasn't there, then it became sort of backyard ball where he was doing things like this. If you're watching, just sort of throwing the ball downfield, he made a lot of big time throws. But my larger question is it sustainable playing this way, or do you just do this until the quarterback grows into the role you expect him to grow into at some point?
Is it sustainable? No. But there's also the part of what you just said. He's going to get better. That much I feel like he's going to get better. But in terms of running around, throwing the ball up, heaving it up, I mean, the game should have been over a minute or 2 earlier than what it was because the Broncos dropped 2 interceptions because he threw the ball up into double coverage. But here's the thing, man. And this is where, and we've had this conversation about Cam Ward. Jaxson Dart is great for TV. Him and Cam Scatterboo, they're exciting. They bring juice, they bring energy, and we love that. But when you peel back the layers of the onion and you look at the play and you look at the production of the play, it hadn't been all that great. And so, and we've been enamored with, with the flashes of Cam. And I still feel confidently strong in that he's going to be fine. They just have to continue to build around him. But the same thing can be said for Jaxson Dart. You love the flashes, you love the swag. He's got his little dance, and he has his chain on, and he's bringing that juice and that excitement to that market. But when you peel back the layers of the onion, there's still a lot of improvement that needs to be had for them to win games consistently.
Yeah, and right, and that's just the takeaway. And we talked about Cam last week in the rankings where I had him ranked too high according to Ran and everyone else on planet Earth. And the reality is Jackson's winning more games than he's losing thus far, and you hope that he keeps getting better. The concern is not even with Jaxson. So if let's say the Giants make a change of the head coach this offseason for whatever reason,
which they shouldn't.
Which they shouldn't. Rand is on the record saying, but the ownership has talked about being frustrated even before the season started. You're also resetting the clock on Jaxson because, everyone's coming in. They may not be a Jaxson guy, and then it's a whole thing. So that's also something you're going to have to manage. And that's going to be outside of everyone's control except the owner because, as Rand likes to say, owners can't what?
Fire themselves.
They cannot fire themselves. So we'll see.
Well, here's one thing, and I don't want to go off on a tangent here because this is why I say they shouldn't fire Brian Daboll. Well, first of all, it's clear that Daboll loved this young man in the draft process, right? That's clear. So we'll go on record and say that Jaxson Dart was Daboll's guy. And he made the tough choice of moving on from Russell Wilson, going with Jaxson Dart. And like you said, they've won games. They've brought excitement. They should have won the game last week because at the end of the day, it wasn't Jaxson Dart's fault as to why they lost that football game. So why not give Daboll another opportunity to grow with this young man, to continue to develop him? Because, like you said, resetting the clock, bringing in another play caller, another coordinator, another head coach, is going to be another year of him having to start over. And you said the new regime may not have been a Jaxson Dart fan. Well, one thing I can guarantee you, one thing for certain, two things for sure, is whoever that next head coach is going to be, if they were to make a move, he's got to be a Jaxson Dart fan.
He will be it in the interview. In his heart of hearts, yes. He may feel differently.
Yeah, in his heart of hearts. But if knowing what these teams are paying, everybody that comes in there, oh no, I love him.
Right. That's
he was my number one quarterback. I liked him more than Cam Ward because they're going to say what they need to say to get that job and to secure that bag. Just like whoever is going to be the next Titans coach is going to come in as the biggest Cam Ward fan.
Right.
And that's just is what it is. So that was just the part. I'm not going to go any further.
No, that's good. I mean, I obviously like to hear your thoughts on those things. And I don't – some Giants fans are pro Brian Daboll and some aren't, and probably because of the record. But to your larger point, and we've seen what Daboll's been able to do, get out of his quarterbacks, even Daniel Jones in year one. So we'll see how this plays itself out. Jaxson will get better, but I don't think that Broncos game was necessarily indicative of him being a finished product. Not that anyone thought that. All right. We're getting out of here, Producer Striker. What do you have? You have something for us? There we go. You decide. If you're listening and Rand's smiling, Striker's been busy with Photoshop today. He has Rand in the all mustard Chargers and all lime green.
Well, I will
Seahawks.
say, based off of this picture alone, I do think I look better with the neon green. So
I agree. I agree.
I reserve the right to change my mind, so I'm changing my mind. I'm going with the Seahawks.
You look naked in the all mustards. That's too close to your skin color. Looks like you went out to play with. You forgot to put your clothes on before you went out to play ball. You are quite happy with yourself, though. You're proud of both the uniform. So, great job, Striker. There we go.
Striker. That's just one for me to file away to memory.
Let's go. Yeah, and he has as Rand has made clear, he is petty. So don't be surprised, Striker, when it comes back to you. All right, that's it for us here on Young Fellow Wednesday. Shout out to our guy, Montie Quinn, for his huge day at Curry College, 522 yards. We will be back on Monday for Ran It Back Mondays. In the meantime, everyone have a great weekend. We'll see you then.